Hey, today's guest, cybersecurity expert Peter Perez, built his business through grit, strong values, and a clear commitment to helping people stay secure in a world that's moving faster every year. So if you ever felt overwhelmed by technology, stressed by the unknown, or if you're wanting to build a business that won't crack under pressure, this conversation's going to hit home. So let's get into it. Hey, today's conversation with someone who's seen business at its best and gets called in when things go sideways. So I'm joined by Peter Perez, president of PCE Solutions. For more than 15 years, Peter's helped companies stay secure, productive, and prepared for what the digital world throws at them. So what stands out about Peter is that he's not a corporate, he's not scripted, he's grounded, practical, and genuine, and deeply values-driven. So he puts people first and technology in its proper place. So Peter, great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Greg. Really appreciate it.
So Peter, let's start at the beginning because your path into this world says a lot about who you are today. So you shared with me that you grew up loving tech and also understanding the risk of it. But when did you first realize that tech was something that you wanted to build a business around?
Yeah, for me, I've always had a kind of a knack when it came to technology. At a young age, I was the go-to guy with anything technology related. If it was broken in the household, go to me. And, I would take care of resolving it. And over time, I kind of developed a reputation of being that go-to guy for friends and family. So, I did that growing up. I had a little side business that I do while I was in school to make a few extra bucks here and there. And for me, that feeling that you would get when you really help somebody who was really struggling with a technology problem that was preventing them from moving ahead, that for me was so satisfying. And it really led me to a point where I determined that it was maybe something I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
So what pushed you towards entrepreneurship?
Give you a little background on my family. My dad escaped communist Cuba back in 1980. And, when you're living in a communist regime where you don't really have freedom to do anything, you appreciate freedom a lot more. So when he was able to leave and come to Canada, he met my mother, who was visiting from Peru, and she had an accounting background. And, they met, fell in love. I was born, got married, and then from there, they were told by their ESL teacher that essentially as immigrants, they essentially have two solutions. They can either go back to school and recertify their education for the next 10 years, or they can start a business. So they chose to start a business, and I grew up in a business family as a result. So entrepreneurship, I think, was just really bred into me. Yeah.
Yeah, it really takes roots, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah. When you grew up in that household, it's kind of just becomes a part of you, right?
When it comes to cybersecurity or IT, what are the biggest misconceptions that business owners still get wrong?
Well, I think that, back in the day, hackers would essentially primarily breach systems more so as hobbyists. I mean, it was something that you would do for fun, just to break into a system to prove that you could do it. There really wasn't that much of a financial incentive to do that. But, now that the world's evolved so much, if you want to know how much you rely on your technology, try going without your phone for a day or two. The entire world is digital now. And, and as a result of that, it's actually, hacker groups and whatnot, it's become big business. I mean, if you look at the amount of trade that's done on the dark web by these hacker groups, it's in the billions. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So because data has so much value now, it's something that there's a financial incentive to target it going forward. And, because of that, it's really not something that you can take lightly anymore. I think that when you talk to business owners who have been breached or held ransom through some ransomware or had intellectual property stolen, you've gone through that experience once, you know how serious it is. And if you haven't gone through it yet, I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I think business aside, I think you want to really get an illustration of how critical our digital technology has become. Try taking away your iPhone away from your teenage daughter and see what happens there.
I don't want to test that.
Yeah, that segues nice into our segment around chaos.
Yeah.
So you've seen some wild situations over the years and some things that are real chaos. Can you share a situation or a moment when a client was going through a crisis and what that situation taught you about people, not just technology?
Yeah, so I guess there's the two case studies that come to mind for me. The first one I would say is, one of our first U.S. clients. He essentially still are our flagship client in the Tampa Bay area, and they had a remote branch office out in Calgary, and they ran into a situation where they had in-house IT. They had a major server failure. I think that their Exchange server and their database server, et cetera, was down for about 3 months. Their in-house IT really tried to bring it back and was just struggling. So after 3 months of pain, the CEO remembered, hey, what was the name of that company that helped us out in Calgary that one time?
Yeah.
He picks up the phone, gives me a call. And, I ended up sending out my senior admin, my top guy, and we had everything back up and running within a week. So that led to him inviting me down to the Tampa Bay area to take over the IT for the entire head office. And they've been a happy client of ours ever since. That's an example of one of them. I think that the second example is that we just onboarded a 150-person engineering firm over the last about a year and a half. And they used to be partnered up with one of those larger IT companies, 100 plus staff, et cetera. And after about 9-10 months of working with them, not only was their onboarding still not done, but they had tried to qualify for cyber insurance 3 different times, denied all 3 times, and they were having weekly network problems. Finally, they had enough. Again, the CEO remembered me, gave me a call. Yep. I send my top team there. Next thing you know, we've got everything cleaned up in 3 months, and they're a loyal client ever since.
Great examples there. I guess the question I have is, out of the calls that you get, how many are incident driven? Meaning, how many are at crisis situation before somebody finally decides to call you in?
I'd say the vast majority. I mean, for us, I think that usually IT is kind of a cost center. It's one of those things where at least that's how people look at it. They don't look at it as a cost center. And usually, unless there's a fire that needs to be put out, people don't really have the incentive to pick up the phone and call. So I'd say, the vast majority, 90% plus of the clients that reach out to us, it's because things are on fire. They don't know what to do. So we come in, we put out the fire and get things running smoothly. Right.
What's that old Ghostbusters say? Who are you going to call?
Yeah.
Peter. Right on. So, hey, stories like that, Peter, don't just reveal broken systems. I think they reveal character. You're values-driven, values-based. Where did your values come from, and how do they shape the way that you lead today?
Yeah, that's so. I grew up in a Christian household, and as a result of that, I think that integrity, honesty, and doing what you say you're going to do has always been a part of my core values. So much so that we've actually worked it into our company values. I mean, we've got the acronym WIRED for our company values, sticking with the nerd theme of WIRES. And that stands for work ethic, integrity, respect, excellence, and determination. And we screen everyone that we want to hire to work for us, or clients that we're potentially considering taking on. We screen for these values because it's that important to us. I mean, where they come from, I think, would obviously my upbringing, but I think secondly also is just, I've experienced some personal betrayal in my life. I've experienced betrayal in business, and that's not a good feeling. And it's not something that I'd ever want to put someone through either. So because of that, we really live by those values.
Yeah, those are, I call that values in action.
You got it.
I would think that those values actually show up pretty big when you're dealing with business owners who are completely overwhelmed by tech, and stressed out by crisis. And it seems that the overwhelm always shows up just before the failure, not after the failure. So when you meet a business owner who's feeling lost or stressed out about their IT, what's the first thing you want them to understand?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of times, especially if they're in crisis mode, I mean, it's one of those things that pretty much every technology problem has a solution. Now, whether or not, the biggest risk you face really is data loss. The thing is, if you've got the right contingency plans, the right backup solutions in place, you can recover from the vast majority of data loss risks and whatnot. But I would say that the number one thing to consider is just the foundation of your system. In many cases, the way the story usually goes is a business starts out and they just start slapping things together the best that they can. And the next thing you know, you've got a Frankenstein-style system that doesn't have a lot of foresight or long-term planning built into the foundational structure. So what I would say is that if you haven't ever gotten to the point of ensuring that your system your foundation is built in a way where not only is it following best practices that come from formal education and experience, but it's also designed to scale, you might want to have a second look at that.
Yeah, I think the discipline of building out a structured IT foundation that bears security in mind is I would say it's been few and far between until incidents happen, and then all of a sudden it becomes a priority.
Exactly. And you know what? The thing is, when you've got a raging fire at your business, i.e., your crypto locked, or you're looking at data loss, et cetera, that's the wrong time to be implementing these solutions and responding to them. You really want to get ahead of these things so that, Murphy's Law, if it does happen, you're ready for it and you've got a plan A, B, C, and D.
So speaking of chaos and fire, the world's changed fast in the last few years, and not everybody's been able to keep up. So what's a shift in the business world that owners still haven't fully wrapped their heads around?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier, just one of those things that having a strong cybersecurity posture is no longer optional. It's really something that you need to have nowadays. It's one of those things where, especially now that attackers and bad actors are using AI to help them with their cybersecurity attacks, and just, it's able to increase the number of targets that they can attack at once. It's one of those things where you really need to start thinking about this stuff. You really need to start getting ahead of it. And if you don't have cyber insurance yet, you should definitely look at getting some cyber insurance.
Yeah, AI has not only increased the frequency of the attacks, but the speed of the attacks and the sophistication of the attacks. So I think that points to cybersecurity as a leadership issue. It's no longer just an IT problem. It really is. It's a leadership responsibility.
Absolutely. And especially like one of the things that we do a lot is we deal with a lot of compliance. So because we deal with the healthcare space, we deal with engineering firms that have access to controlled goods, et cetera, really need to start looking at your cybersecurity posture, not just from purely a business resilience perspective, but the fact that there are now compliance requirements that you need to have in place in order to comply with these standards that are set by these frameworks.
Sure. Just by nature of your business and some of the other associations you belong to, you've been around a lot of sharp entrepreneurs, again, through the EO community and other basic communities, just the customer base you deal with. So what have you taken away from or have learned from being around these high performing leaders? I
met a fellow who's around my age, highly successful fellow, and he was the one that gave me the advice to join EO. And that I can't believe how transformational that's been for me. When you're brushing shoulders with other successful entrepreneurs, and you're learning kind of what makes them tick and just their ability to problem solve. I think that one of the things that I find in common is a lot of people, you think you're alone when it comes to these difficult business problems, and really you're not. A lot of people have gone through what you're going through. And by brushing shoulders with these people, you kind of learn different strategies, and a lot of problems that you think are new to you, they're not, and other people know how to solve them. And one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to, effective executives is that they have a lot of grit. And when, a disaster strikes, they keep their composure, they stay calm, they focus on solving the issue. If you've got a lot of good strategy ahead of it, then when it comes time to respond, like a formal disaster recovery plan or a business continuity plan, you already know what to do.
Okay. So, most great leaders, like you say, have lived at least through one tough season. What's a challenge in your own journey that shaped how you lead today?
Well, I think that, in the early years, like the startup phase, that's anybody who started a business from the ground up can tell you you're working 80 hours a week. You're not taking any days off. And that's, and when I say 80 hours a week, it could be, maybe even 7 days a week that you're working that. It doesn't matter. You need to do what you need to do in order to keep the business running. And when I went through that phase, I would be surprised if it took some years off my life, to be honest. But I think that one thing we went through is I remember, while most of my friends were out partying and going to clubs or whatever, I was the guy who was driving around 2-3 in the morning to go to client sites to put out server outages. Or, one story that comes to mind actually was that one time we had a client one of our first clients, and they were opening their store the following day. And, one of the vendors that they hired to come in and do a job ended up deleting, pretty much wiping out all the work that we did, deleting Active Directory, if that means anything to the audience. But we knew that they had to launch the following morning at 10 a.m. So, I called my wife at 2 a.m. to come drive a server to me to do what's called a swing migration. Did that, and we worked all night, and we met the start time. So they were able to start and launch their store on time. But that was an all-nighter that we did to pull that off. So that's an example of some of the struggles, and I think that one of our core values of determination that we commit to our clients is just if you have a business objective that needs to be met, we will meet it.
Yeah, the expression that comes to mind, I repeated earlier, is this is an illustration example of your values in action.
You got it.
So well done. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so everything you've shared points to having a business that's been has a solid foundation that doesn't crumble. So if a business owner came up to you today and said, Peter, I want to build a company that's stable, scalable, and hard to break, what advice can you give them? Where should they start? What should they focus on?
Yeah. So what I would say is that, I think that most business owners, especially the ones who succeeded, is they've got some pretty good instincts. And if they're having weekly server issues or networking problems or just IT issues all the time, another thing with that is that you don't know what you don't know. So the reason that you hire an IT consultant or you hire an accountant is because you don't know these things. And you are trusting that they're going to be giving you good information. And I would say is that if your gut is telling you that something's off, it probably is. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get a second opinion on just your overall IT setup and just see how it is. And from there, we can have a look at it and determine whether or not that foundation is solid and built to scale. So I'd say that's number one, making sure you've got a solid foundation that's built to scale. And then number two would be making sure that you've got really good contingency plans in terms of your backup strategy and your business continuity plan.
I guess another aspect that gets overlooked in the early days is scalability. That gets to the planning and the design. And, it's hard to think about 5 years out when you're worried about, 5 weeks.
Exactly, 100%. And I think that's really common with business owners is that, because your time is spread so thin and because you are trying to solve problems all the time, you have to focus on what problem is the most urgent. And unfortunately, in your cybersecurity, your IT, that usually takes a backseat until the disaster strikes.
All right. So let's kind of wrap this up, Peter. So if someone remembers one thing or a couple things to take away from this session, what should it be?
Well, I think that the main takeaways is number one, cybersecurity is required nowadays. It's not really an option anymore. Breaches are happening every day, even when it comes to email phishing attacks and just some of the spoofing that's taking place where they try to intercept and change your accounting information. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's happening daily now. So if you don't have a good cybersecurity position, you might want to look at correcting that. The next thing too is if you're not really sure about what your cybersecurity position is, or cybersecurity posture rather, what I would say is if you don't have cyber insurance, go try and get it. And the reason why that's a really good exercise is because if you can't get cyber insurance, that tells you there's some pretty big gaps in your cybersecurity posture that really need to be looked at. So if you don't have cyber insurance, go get it. It's a really great exercise to see where you're really at. The last point is prevention beats recovery. The best time to fix things is before something breaks and becomes disruptive and expensive.
So, Peter, this has been incredibly real, refreshingly grounded, and loaded with practical advice that we can follow. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Greg. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So let's share with the audience, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way to reach us is you can check us out on our website, p.pcsolutions.ca, or you can give us a call at 403-879-8643. Me or someone on my team would be happy to help you.
Okay, fantastic. So again, if you want to connect with Peter or learn about building a business that's secure and future ready, reach out. He'll certainly help. So if this episode helped you, share it with another business owner who needs some straight, no BS advice. Yeah, thanks for joining us on Top Dog Tips. We'll see you next time. Until then, it's Greg Belanger, the Top Dog. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode of Top Dog Tips. You want more Top Dog Tips? Head over to yyccalgarybusiness.ca and subscribe so you never miss another episode. So do you have someone in mind who should be on our show? Tap the Be a Guest link on our homepage to apply. And if you're looking to raise your profile in your Calgary business community, join the YYC Calgary Business Network by signing up for a free business listing, and also check out our shop club designed to drive even more visibility and sales to your business. So until next time, stay visible, stay positive, and keep leading the pack. This is the Top Dog, Greg Belanger, signing off.